morning or good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is JBR, and today we are speaking with Magdelene, Public Relations Advisor for SimukaAfrica.org, the co-creator and curator of the 34 Gallery Initiative. Wow, thank you for your time in speaking with all of us today. I wanted to just take a moment to do a deep dive with you. Essentially, what goes on behind the scenes in the 34 Gallery Initiative, and acknowledge actually the profound impact your work has had on thousands of artists in Web3, but how important, and most importantly, the impact this initiative has on the Samuka African Youth Association.
That's quite the introduction. Thank you for having me on your platform today. This is an unusual experience for me, as I'm used to very much working behind the scenes. So another aspect of what I do for SimukaAfrica.org is I am the UNV online personnel supervisor. So I am a part of the United Nations Volunteer Program. I supervise all of the UNV staff that is assigned to the 34 Gallery and Samuka for their online operations. And for today, I am off camera to stand in solidarity with our 34 Gallery artists around the world who have to remain anonymous. We have a very big issue with privacy in the digital age, and I'd like to touch on that a little bit during this interview.
That's so great. Thank you so much for indicating that, because I was actually going to ask about this. Why not be visible? Why not be out loud? And I really appreciate that you are telling us this. Let's just jump in. I have thousands of questions for you. If you could just please tell us as much or as little as you'd like about yourself. And this would be prior to the involvement with the 34 Gallery SimukaAfrica.org initiative. If you can, if you want to.
My name is Magdelene D.D. Prior to my involvement with Samuka Africa and the United Nations Volunteer Program, I was the former outreach director for an organization called poweringpotential.org, which creates solar power computer labs in rural communities for schools in Tanzania, Africa, and the Peruvian Amazon. I worked with them for a number of years. And I've worked in international sustainability initiatives, primarily in education, since 2007 to help the world's at-risk children. And in addition to that, the DD stands for Doctorate of Divinity. I studied comparative religion for more than 20 years because I wanted to understand the nature of evil and why we keep choosing it for humanity. I needed to do that because of the two primary reasons for my career. I grew up without parents, and I am a 9/11 survivor.
Yeah, you just left me breathless for a second. What led you to take on such a challenging mission? I mean, this that you're doing, I understand that you needs to be involved in helping others and assisting others. Where was it, or what was the pivotal moment in your life that sort of shaped your commitment to these causes in specific?
My entire career trajectory is the summation of every teacher and mentor and adult who decided to take a chance and an opportunity on a kid that was pretty much, according to statistics, going nowhere. If you look at what happens to children, particularly female children without parents, those outcomes are catastrophic. So I had teachers, I had mentors who told me that I had writing ability, that said I had creative ability and that I needed to use that. I needed to maximize that to become a good person, to embark on dreams that I might be able to cultivate. And that is so important for children because when you come from a disadvantaged background of any type, the world is constantly telling you that you're not able to accomplish anything, that you operate in a world of negation, you're nothing. And to have a professional come and say, you can write, you can paint, You can dance, you can sing. That's worth its weight in gold for children because it enables them to dream. That's been my driving motivation. And the reason for that is my secondary reason is my 9/11 experience. I was a children's bookseller in the World Trade Center complex. I worked for Borders Books and Music, and I'm sure that a lot of your audience remembers Borders, remembers Walden Books, where I worked for them. And that particular store, store 142 in Building 5, had 3 floors. It was a gorgeous store. It cleared multi-million dollar sales there because of its location, and it was absolutely beautiful. I used to have my lunch sitting in between the towers, dreaming my dreams, and I was 21 years old. I
Wow.
took a gap year in college. I already had an established journalism career as a columnist. I decided, let's take a year off. Let's go to New York. Let's write the great American novel. And I was a children's bookseller in the Trade Center, and I was living my best life until I wasn't. The people that I knew who died on 9/11 were the parents of the children that I worked with. And I knew those kids by name. And when that tragedy happened, there are no sides for children. There are no good guys and bad guys. There's just terror and horror and war that has no explanation. Because whatever the adults try to come up with for a 10-year-old to explain why the world is suddenly burning all around them, frankly, isn't good enough. That's why I do what I do, because I was an unwanted kid, and I know what it's like to be a kid who grows up into a broken adult who paints the world into nightmares. I fought that reality. I think if more adults in this world fought those nightmares, maybe we can make something beautiful out of this earth instead of burning it to the ground. That's my primary motivation for my career.
So, how do you then balance the weight of these issues while maintaining your own sense of hope and resilience?
I think it's important post pandemic. I think the entire world, for the first time, felt the same exact thing. We had over 191 countries under lockdown during the pandemic. That was the first collective mental health trauma that everybody could seriously relate to. Where were you when the pandemic happened? Everybody can relate to this. However, after the pandemic, silence about mental health. It's just back to normal. So, how do I balance that? My balance is speaking about things people don't want to talk about because that's the line, that's the balance. There is no balance in this world if we can't have honesty, honest conversations. That's what keeps me focused in my career and in my life because I'm dealing with honest people. If you're running a mental health initiative, that's a lot of honesty. That's going to keep you balanced because you're there and you're not dealing with obfuscation and the superficial and the things that really don't matter and the pressure to conform. That's what's breaking us. That's what's putting us off balance. That's what's keeping us up at night.
What do you consider the cornerstone of 34 Galleries mission, and how has it sort of evolved over time?
There's a lot of to unpack there with the 3 organizations. So the first thing that I'll start with is Samuka Africa. So Samuka Africa Youth Association was founded in 2006 in Norton, Zimbabwe. It currently provides services on site to 8 different provinces, primarily to at-risk children, families, and child marriage survivors. Their programs there have enabled the young people in the area to have a new lease on life. And Zimbabwe leads the region in youth suicide. Founding director Ezekiel Mudimu and myself started looking at these numbers globally, and he said, let's start an arts initiative to try to address this because more than 80% of the world does not have access to mental health care. So most of us who don't have access to this, we're using the arts to get by. We partnered with Hug. First, it was just going to be a web page, and we were just going to do one open call for mental health art and how do you deal with your mental health struggles. We were so inundated by global artists and individuals in mental crisis that within 6 weeks were a full-scale initiative with a functional virtual gallery. That is just how overwhelming the demand was for art therapy and arts outreach. So the 34 Gallery was born out of this UN Agenda SDG 3.4. That is the part of the United Nations Sustainability Agenda that covers mental health. It is a small add-on to that sentence. It's not even its own sentence. And for that reason, we thought maybe mental health would be something that could reduce the global suicide rate, but at the same token, unite us because we just came out of a collective mental health trauma experience. Now, our virtual outreach has spanned more than 150 artists who have submitted artwork talking about their mental health struggles, talking about where they are in their careers. We have had artists who are in active conflict zones who are creating art with rudimentary tools. We have young children, teenagers who are making art, and the only thing they can really get access to is a cell phone. They're making digital and AI art this way. We've had people who were inpatient last year for suicide attempts who are now 34 gallery artists with art contracts. So the enormity of this initiative and the possibilities that it could have to really change the lives of a lot of people, it just can't be understated. We are so grateful to have the support of the United Nations Volunteer Program for our staff and to all the artists who continue to participate with us. I hope that was comprehensive enough.
Absolutely, absolutely. You touched on so many aspects of what it is that the organizations triangulate upon. It's really, really something that when you think about the world that we live in on this side and how we have a tendency to sort of take advantage of what it is that we have in front of us, screens and the ability to go to a store and go pick up artist materials and supplies when families don't have that. So it's mind-boggling when you think of it in a way of compartmentalizing the nations. Oh gosh, okay, so I'm not going to I'm doing what I said I would not do, and that is to make commentary because this is not about me at all. Do you see that the demographic has opened up in terms of how do you think that the platform is reaching those in the most isolated and or marginalized communities?
I will say that as a 34 gallery artist yourself, you have been very instrumental to our operations because a number of our female artists and young people have read your work with us and they are just awed by you and they're inspired to do better and be better where they are. So thank you for being you in this instance because this opportunity for us to even talk about this wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So I just wanted to say that first. And the next thing is when it comes to the demographics of those who are most in need, our drive to make a disposable culture across all cultures has created very cheap technology. It is easier for a young person to have access to a cell phone, which in a sense is a miniature Library of Alexandria, than it is for them to have food in some cases. This reality where you can have a person, a young person who's 14, 15 years old, barely has anything to eat, barely has a place to stay, but they will have a cell phone that puts them in touch with the international community. This is staggering. The people who listen to this around the world who are living in villages will understand what I'm saying with us. What we were seeing in these regions, whether we're talking about Indonesia or Vietnam or India or Zimbabwe or places in South America like Colombia, these young kids with no resources, rudimentary dirt floors, living in these isolated villages, but they have a cell phone and they're being bullied. Now, if you are being bullied in a high income country and you are in an established apartment or house, this is optional for you, this internet life. You can walk away from this and go do something else. we have opportunities where we're told that what happens online is really not that serious. But when you take a cell phone and you put it in the hands of a villager who is very isolated, has no real access to the outside world, and all of a sudden they have 1,000 comments on a post that they made telling them to either commit suicide or they're a waste of space, these children are not prepared for this reality. They have not grown up with this technology. They don't know what a troll is. They don't know any of the things that you and I took for granted because we grew up with the technology, with the computers, with the rest of it. Sometimes for these kids, that's the first technology that they have access to. And we're not realizing what that does. So when I say that this initiative is reaching people we never thought possible, it's because the technology is also reaching people we never thought possible. We can talk to that child who's in a remote village somewhere, and we have in many of these regions, not just in Zimbabwe, but around the world, because these young people, they're engaged, they're online, and they want to know about the world around them this way.
I truly believe that the initiative already has changed that. I think it's just going to expand upon what you've come up with. I think that I speak on behalf of everyone that is in the United States or in the UK. Um, my hope is that it grows exponentially and that it leaves an impact on those of us who perhaps aren't really doing anything other than I'm creating art because I need to make money. But perhaps someone will watch this and go, "Oh, I want to get involved. I really want to get involved." Thank you. Thank you for this. What has been the most meaningful or the most impactful collaboration that you've done to date with the trilogy? I say the trilogy because I mean, the 34 galleries, you, the Simoca Africa, and then United Nations. So what has been the most the one thing that you all came together and you just had this moment of, oh my God, my heart, I can't sleep.
Well, in the very beginning, the one that really let us know things were going to be very different was a young artist named Kunta. He submitted to one of our open calls. And I looked at this, and then I looked at the artist statement, and he said that he made this artwork in the middle of the Sudanese war. And he was stuck in the war zone for 45 days, and he was hiding, and he was making this artwork to keep himself sane because he was hearing the violence and he was scared. But he felt like if he could do the artwork, that he would be okay. And he was just drawing while all this chaos is going around him. And reading this and looking at the artwork, you couldn't help but be incredibly moved. That shifted the narrative for us. The United Nations strives to be politically neutral. Our UNV staff is trauma aware, culturally sensitive. Overall, humanity is in a big war, and that war is between left and right brain cognition. The left brain thinkers among us have decided that left brain knowledge is the only knowledge worth pursuing. And because so much of this, whether it's STEM or any of these types of industries, are reliant on logic, everything must be a commodity in order to have value, even when it comes down to human life. And that is the war we're really facing. It's not about cultures, the things that are nonsensical, surrealism. I remember being in MoMA once and hearing someone say that surrealism makes absolutely no sense. There's plenty of things in life that don't make sense. A platypus doesn't make sense. It still exists. It's not a commodity, though. It just exists. If this young man had not made this particular artwork and told his story, is it of value if there's not a price tag on it? It's definitely valuable to all of us. And that's something that we need to understand. The best things in life cannot be bought, cannot be purchased, and cannot be categorized. And I am a high functioning autistic woman. I was diagnosed when I was 27. So I understand a great deal of this life logically. but I have balance. I'm a creative person at the same time. So that particular instance has to be the greatest collaboration that we've ever done with Kunta, actually getting his artwork out there, because that proves that you don't have to be logical. You don't have to be a commodity. You can just be someone who's sitting there creating art because you feel like it and it makes you feel better. That's the whole point of the initiative. And until that moment, I don't think everybody realized that's what we're really advocating for art's sake, that helps with our mental health. And that really just drove the point home for us. His story was so incredibly powerful and incredibly moving that it changed our whole infrastructure of how we handle artists, of how we work with our open calls. And we wouldn't have been able to expand this far to also partner with art jobs without him being involved and just sharing his story. He didn't even work for us, he just told us what he went through.
Thank you for sharing that. These issues are very difficult to talk about, and however, we're having the conversation. Statement that these issues are very difficult to talk about, and however, we're having the conversation. How do you create a safe space for these conversations with challenging complacency?
That is, it is a challenging question, and it also touches on what I mentioned earlier about the notion of privacy. We live in a fantastic time and a very dangerous one because we are so open now in ways that we weren't even a decade ago. It used to be that you could be online, anonymous, have an identity there, walk away, and still have your real life. Now, online life is compulsory for a lot of us. It is tied into your livelihood and your identity, and it can also become a very real threat. When I was younger, the internet was not mainstream. Stupidity was not recorded. Everyone has a dumb moment in life. Now there's a record of it. That one moment follows you and it can haunt you indefinitely. And that includes the trauma that you've experienced. And I bring the conversations up because my whole existence is an uncomfortable conversation. I was an unwanted child because I was removed from a home for severe neglect. But my biological parent was an exotic dancer. My whole existence is on this whole line of morality that we pretend in all societies regarding women and children, regarding what it means when the bachelor party is over, regarding child abuse, foster care, the sex industry, prostitution, and all of these very uncomfortable words that we don't like to say in polite company, like child marriage. There's so many other people like me who are out there who have had an experience that puts them so far removed from everyday conversation that privacy is a real issue for them right now. I don't watch 9/11 footage because I can see my coworkers running past the cameras. No one asks what that's like when you're attached to a tragedy like this. only if it's going to make their career larger or their byline larger or it's entertainment for other people. But to actually be attached to one of these things and watch your life up in these cameras this way, that's an uncomfortable conversation. And we're not having those conversations because it is easier to pretend that the person that you watched on TikTok who just had their life ruined in 5 seconds won't be you. We don't want to have those conversations because some of us would like to be like Nicole Kidman's character in The Perfect Couple on Netflix, where these dancing skeletons are in the closet and we're just praying no one ever finds them because we have the perfect life. The idea of safe space has been obliterated by the internet. You can be bullied by someone who doesn't even live in your country. So for us, the safe space is not online, it's not a physical room, it's the art. The arts are the safe space because artists create golden ages. Time after time, culture after culture, spreading the literature, spreading the art, spreading the goodwill, spreading the good cheer, because creatives come from all walks of life, and they're usually the most marginalized, the most bullied, and the most unwanted. And for that reason, artists create collaborative societies where people are accepted by default. What I'm asking for with the 34 Gallery Initiative is for our global artists to create a global safe space, a global golden age, where we can all have the tool of self expression instead of self annihilation. And that maybe if we can reach across the table and recognize the creative spirit in each of us, that the rest of the problems will be reduced. And instead of asking where the safe space is, we've automatically created one. For people to take a moment and recognize that the people that are on our screens who are suffering are just like us. They're going through the same struggles, the same issues, and we can all express that beautifully, or we can keep destroying things. It's a matter of choice. So I don't really have a problem having uncomfortable conversations because I had to spend a good chunk of my life pretending that I am not linked to an entire world that nobody wants to acknowledge or talk about. And I know even now in certain circles, if they knew I had a biological parent that way, societal gatekeepers who would not want me at their table. I've suffered all my life because I'm neurodivergent and I was unwanted. Those people who are in similar situations and can't speak, then I'll try to speak for them and make sure that they get heard.
Yay, men. Yay, men for you. Yay, men for the work that you're doing. And I have so much respect for you. And thank you so, so much for being the voice. It's like you're the voice for the survivor needs to reclaim their narrative. I mean, that's essentially that's what you're doing right now. So, whoosh, thank you.
I know it's a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, okay. So let's bring it back to, all right, what do you think about the government and institutions? What do they need to do? And how do they need to play in this? What's their role? Where do you think they fall short? Because you know they do. I know they do. What can we do? What do we do? How do we get the government to uh, change this? And I got to say that the very little bit of time that I've been able to play a part with the 34 galleries, Simuka, and UN, the very little bit that I've done, the question in the back of my mind is always, who's going to see this? And is this going to lead to any impactful change between governments?
Okay, so that's let me clear my throat to get into that one. Okay.
It's a hard one because there's
It is.
right?
It is.
Visibility is everything. But this is like that thing that is always in my mind, like, and even as a creative, it's most of the work that I do. It's like, okay, so who's going to see this? And are they really going to care? And the people that I want to see this are those that are leading governmental policy makers. I hate to say the P word, but politicians. It's like, when are we going to get eyes and actually do an impactful change that actually assists for situations of human trafficking, rape, domestic violence? Like, when is there going to be an actual, look at this platform and say, oh my goodness, we need to pay more attention here. Perhaps even if it's just, we need to throw more dollars over here so that these situations actually get some sort of rectification and rejuvenation of change. So gosh, I'm so sorry to be so passionate about it, but like it's been a
No, not
question,
at
it's been a question on my mind. And I know that you all are doing so much. All anybody has to do is just drive over to the website just to see everything that you all have done and know that, man, that's like, okay, well, where can I jump in? Like, how can I assist? Do I become a pen pal? Do I
the first two things in the immediacy, how can someone get involved? If you go to 34gallery.org, we have monthly open calls, which are featured on hug.art, and also with Art Jobs, which is based out of the European Union. Those open calls are all mental health based. Our judges go through and they select 20 artists to feature on social media every single month so that everyone can have self care tips and be motivated to live a beautiful life despite everything that they're going through. So, super positive. Everyone loves those opportunities. Now, then we go back over to outreach through samukaafrica.org. So, currently we have our Letters to Zimbabwe program. What's happening on site is that the kids feel forgotten in the Norton region in the digital age. They feel invisible, as if the world doesn't even know that they exist, particularly if they're suffering this way. A lot of people are unaware, but East and Southern Africa have been hit by a devastating drought, climate change, which has killed in some places over 75% of the crops. The agricultural sector is really hurting. In this deficit, there is a food and hunger crisis. So the Letters to Zimbabwe program asks the public to directly send aid to Zimbabwe, care packages, food supplies, water supplies, or just a letter to a child saying that they matter. These kids love to get mail, to be able to see that someone in France or someone in Germany or the United States or the UK or over in South America, these exotic places, that they've managed to just send them a letter as a pen pal, a real letter, an actual tangible letter. So this initiative is being led by 34 Gallery artist Chanel Julia Rosita, and she is so brilliant. Her artwork is award winning. She also has an article with us regarding how to apply for artist residencies. A lot of our artists will write features and interludes telling our young people how they can attain art careers so that their passion for creating art can also transition into an income or a side hustle for them in conjunction with what they're already doing. And even if you're not actively being involved, actively donating, actively creating art, just following the social media and talking about it word of mouth does wonders. What can governments and all of these policy makers and the politicians do? My honest opinion is that the silent partner in all of the chaos that's going on is about to force humanity's hand, and that is the earth. There's not going to be a choice about having these conversations very, very shortly. United Nations Agenda 2030 was created because the global community recognized that climate change was going to be catastrophic after the year 2030 in all sectors. And because the climate change was going to impact agriculture to industry to the cultural dynamics, they created this agenda for the nations to get on board early and try to put fail safe measures in place and infrastructure in place to deal with the dwindling resources that are on this planet. It is now 2025. A lot of the reports that we've been seeing in the past 18 months say that less than 20% of the sustainability goals have been met, and Agenda 2030 ends in 2030. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have boiling seas now, and that wasn't supposed to happen until 2037. These wildfires that we're seeing that are so blazing out of control, that also wasn't supposed to happen until 12, 15, 20 years from now. We're seeing the things that were predicted to happen later in this century happening today. Cognitive dissonance can only last so far with this conversation. And that's what I think the issue is. It's not that we don't know, it's that we want to pretend that we don't. There's these research studies that are claiming that human beings are not having a drastic impact on the planet. Our satellite photos, when the Earth revolves around the sun, half of it is facing away from the sun, correct? And it's dark, but it's lit up by an entire network of lights. There is no other planet in our solar system that has been terraformed this way. So to say that human beings are not having an impact on the planet when we have literally lit it up this way makes no sense. And it's getting to the point where we have to have the discussion about where women and children are in that, because you cannot restrict women's rights when women are going to be needed to solve this problem. The current things that are happening on the planet were not created by women or children. Women and children did not write these policies. They were not part of the conversation. They were not in these boardrooms. The question which we are starting to hear now is there a different way? Yeah, there is. There is a different way. Maybe it's time to try something different now, to let other voices come forward and speak. Because what we're seeing globally, these are resource wars. Resource wars come down to one thing: for humanity. Humanity is always talking about who is more worthy of the resources. It doesn't matter if, whether we're talking about race or culture or gender or any of these things. The question is, who is more worthy of the resources? That's what all of this is about. As a neurodivergent person, the conversation makes no sense to me. If we are all Homo sapiens, we are worthy of these resources. We are here. We can share. We can figure it out. And the other thing that's going to become readily apparent is the pandemic. We have evolved with enough technology and knowledge that a pandemic hit humanity and barely made a dent in our population. If you rewind the clock 100 years, how many millions of people would have died from COVID? We obviously have evolved to the point where war and conflict are optional now. I think people aren't realizing they're optional because they're still on the table. Humanity is going to be forced to change with it. But there are many organizations that are working tirelessly to really figure out how to combat this rollback of rights for women and children that has been happening in the last 10 years, because the idea seems to be restricting the women will somehow make this prosperity thing work, and it's just simply not going to happen. The best advertisement that we have for change is for successful women to be visible, to be vocal, and to be present. We don't have to start a conflict, but we do need to stand our ground, and we need to say what it is that we're fighting for. We're fighting to be equal humans. We're fighting for our children to have a future where they don't have to wonder if they're going to survive. That's the conversation that we need to be having, because the changes on the earth affect everyone. And until the rhetoric is removed and we're looking at this in the same way that you created this really wonderful piece for us, we have to be one world, okay? We have to be on one beat. We have to have one love, all of us collectively. And that's going to take some doing, because the tribalism and the culturalism and all of these little things that are dividing us, the earth is going to render that pretty mute very soon. So I wanted to put it this way, because a lot of people, especially since November, have been very hopeless in a political sense about the coming changes, and that there isn't any way that we can possibly overcome the challenges that are coming, that people are going to be silenced and people are going to suffer. What I say to that is, it's 4 a.m. across the world right now. It's always dark at 4 a.m., but the dawn is coming. You hold on. You just have to hold on. The darkness only wins in this world when we believe that it's all powerful. The biggest energy source that we have is the sun. It rises without our say so. So if there's a sun every single day that is this high power that's right there, a tangible example that the light can definitely do anything, I don't think the darkness should be allowed to win within any of us. We have our own lights. The powerless individual is a myth, it's a construct for complacency. I think women need to stop being complacent. And I think that we need to be visible, we need to be here, and we need to stand our ground. Being polite isn't necessarily going to get us through this, but stating who we are, what we need, and what our future needs in plain language definitely will.
A statement that these issues are very difficult to talk about, and however, we're having the conversation. So that these issues are very difficult to talk about, and however, we're having the conversation. Thank you. Wow. How do you keep going? You personally, like, how do you keep going through this? There's no complacency in any of this, and you're doing this all day long. So, how do you personally get through a day?
Every evening, I have something that's called a spaz hour. I'm high functioning autistic. I call it the spaz hour. So, usually around 8, 9 o'clock, I set aside an hour. I do whatever I need to do. If I need to cry about the things that I've heard that day, I cry. If I need to scream into a pillow, I do that. I will admit, I have made a blanket fort and stayed there for 30 minutes and just meditated on the quiet. Whatever I need to do as a neurodivergent person for that hour. For exercise, I practice martial arts. Tai Chi, Qigong are very profound exercises to get me centered and balanced. I also do sword fighting with katanas. When I pick up my practice katana, I envision the anxiety and the depression and the anger, and it's a shadow in front of me, and I fight it. I fight it until those things are conquerable. That depression is not going to get me. The anxiety is not going to get me. Meditation is the cornerstone of my routine, which enables me to have the energy to do the martial arts, to have the energy to put a spaz hour in place on my schedule that I adhere to. I actually studied with the Nechang Foundation and Monastery for a number of years. They have a branch in New York City, and I trained in Heart Sutra and Diamond Cutter Sutras. Negative things do not get to rent space there for free, they get evicted. And through that meditation training, which I've also studied with a number of really profound teachers around the world, including His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I studied a week of classes with him in 2010 on meditation in the Western mind. When I sit down and I think about those lessons, how Westerners can sometimes get meditation wrong, that thinking that nothingness is all that existence is, that belief is driving us into the ground, and is one that I refuse to adhere to. I am an instrument of the light, and I fight the darkness with my martial arts. I express my trauma and my hurts and my laughter through my artwork. I write poetry. I stay creative. And pretty much I just find that kind of balance, you know. And there's one other tool that I'll say as well. I actually turn my phone off at night. It goes off at 10 o'clock. It goes off, and people will contact me and they'll say, Magdalene, I tried to do this. Like, I'm working with people in 8 different time zones. My phone goes off at all hours. I would get no sleep. You have to, at some point, remember we did have a time in humanity when things turned off. You do not have to look at your phone at 2 a.m. It can be off. That's one of the biggest things that I do. And the last thing that I do to cope with things is I start off my day with good news. I follow the Good News Network out of the UK, and in the morning I have my coffee and I start off with a good news story about something to start my day. And I tell you, that makes a difference rather than getting up and seeing a headline about yet another mass shooting, yet another war skirmish, or any of that. I got up in the morning and I found out that someone was nice to their neighbor, or there's been a new technological advance that will help cancer patients, or some other great news that I immerse myself in for 45 minutes before I start my day. How you start your day matters. So those are some of the tools that I use for myself. Um, Yoga's in there too, but starting at 8 o'clock with that spaz hour, that's where all those self-care tools go. And I use all of them for that hour or two to keep myself balanced. And that's how I go forward. And I think all of us should have a routine like that. Self-care is mandatory.
Absolutely. What is next for the 34 Gallery? What are you excited about with your next initiative?
One of our UNV online personnel staff, Adamu Ibrahim, he was featured across all the United Nations volunteer platforms on their blog for his work with disability inclusion. So this is just showing that you can be someone from any walk of life and be recognized at a very high level for the work that you do with us. That's one thing. And then after that, the United Nations Volunteer Program has given us the green light to expand our UNV staff for as long as we need it. They believe in our initiative because of the feedback that they've gotten, because of hardworking professionals dedicating their time to our cause, because of the global artists who have decided to make mental health a priority. We are going to expand as much as possible to continue providing free publicity to artists. I also want to stress that the 34 Gallery does not receive any payment for promoting the artists. We feature the artists. If we have inquiries, they are referred directly to the artists for sales. We don't handle sales transactions. Our work is mental health advocacy as a mental health gallery. We are more interested in artists being able to speak for themselves and make their own livelihood without us as a gallery getting a cut of any of that. That's really, I'm an artist myself. That was one of those things with the virtual initiative that we really don't have to deal with our artists. We don't have to say, hi, you have to pay a hanging fee. Hi, you have to pay gallery dues. No, you just have to show up, participate in an open call, tell us what your story is. We will feature you. We will refer people to your work. We will provide a job reference for you. As soon as you're chosen as a 34 gallery artist, you are part of an actual gallery. We will try to promote you to the best of our ability. So, with all of this enormous support that we're having, besides Hug.art and art jobs, we're looking for additional ways to expand the initiative because the arts also includes acting. It also includes writing. We are trying to create separate initiatives as well within the 34 Gallery to reach out to writers, actors, those involved with theater, stage creation, all of these different aspects of the industry that young people don't know about, because this is also career development as well. Every single creative professional with the 34 Gallery, they're teaching the youth how to be the next generation of creatives. You know, this is so important because when you look at a movie or you look at a production, you see all of these jobs listed there and no one knows exactly what those are. We want to be a place through our interludes publication where each one of those professionals can write an article about what they think about mental health and what they do as their passion. And this can inspire another young person out here to say, you know what, maybe I want to be a videographer. Maybe I'd like to be a sound mixer. Maybe I'd like to be a fine artist. Maybe I'd like to be an AI artist. Every artist who's with us, those blessings are being paid forward because the young people are reading every single thing we put out, and they're also embarking on art careers as well. So where we are next year, probably a lot bigger than where we are at the moment.
So it's wonderful because in leaving an impact, it's making a difference in the entire platform. These issues are very difficult to talk about, and however, we're having the conversation. That these issues are very difficult to talk about, and however, we're having the conversation. It sounds like you're leaving a much broader impact for artists all around to be able to get involved. It's wonderful because in leaving an impact, it's making a difference. What would be a message that you would like to leave people that hopefully are watching this, who might be grappling with these issues themselves, like somebody who's actually identifying with the hard conversation?
What I would like to leave everyone with is a sense of hope. It always looks darkest right before the sun is about to come out. And right now, the darkness in our global communities has gotten enormously loud. The only reason why that exists is because the myth of a powerless individual has become so pervasive. It is a huge lie that one person can't make a difference. The only reason why the only reason why we believe that is because omniscience is not a part of our inherent human makeup. If we could see how our actions ripple out into the future, all of us would be nice to everyone if we could see the outcome of our actions. But because we can't, for now, I'm asking for 2025, no matter what you see, no matter what you hear on a screen, stay true to your focus as an individual. Stay true to your heart. Because if we lose our heart, we will lose humanity. We're fighting for our hearts. That's what this is about. The right to exist as who we are. That is a fight none of us should ever relinquish to anyone. It is a fight worth fighting even through exhaustion. Even when we think we have nothing left to give, we do. We're in it for the long haul to make sure that every individual here is going to be heard, is going to be seen, is going to be accepted. And for people who believe that that's not possible, possible things have to start somewhere. And they usually start in the realm of the impossible before they're brought into reality. We can make a better world, but we just have to remember that we're not just fighting for equality or any of these things. We're fighting for our hearts as people to exist. That's the struggle. That's what we're in. And I'm hoping that people will want to join me in ensuring that that's a war that we win.
First of all, just thank you for taking the time in doing this with me. But the final question, and I'm sorry for prolonging it, it's just like I don't want to let you go. I feel like I want to just hold you hostage for a few more hours. That's such the wrong word to use, but it's in jest, everybody. It's just in jest. Okay. If you met your younger self or anybody that is in the field of work that you do, what advice would you give yourself or that person?
My younger self, I would just go back and tell her to hold on. There were so many times during my childhood where it was like the whole world was filled with predators. That's why I do martial arts, because you have to learn eventually how to fight back, or you just continue to be victimized. And I would say to the young women out there, the ones without parents, the ones without support, the ones who are beaten up, the ones who have been raped, you can fight back. They haven't taken the best part of you. That's an aspect of your story. It's not the totality of who you are. Who you are is not defined by what has happened to you or what you've had to do for survival. Who you are is dictated by what moves your heart. That's who you are. That's what I would say to any girl that's at risk this way. To the child marriage survivors and those who have been forced into those situations, because I didn't have parents, I was being forced into a marriage when I was 16. I grew up in the United States. Child marriage does happen in the United States. It happens in a lot of these countries. It just requires a signature from a legal guardian or a parent to make a girl under 18 be married off. Well, that gentleman decided he wanted a taste before that happened. I beat him up. I cannot stress enough to the women of this world that you do not have to be abused. You do not have to be a passive victim in your own story. You can fight back. I tell all of the girls that come across this way, I say this: you can fight back. Most people don't expect a story like that. They expect the other part, but that's not what happened to me. And that marriage did not take place, and I got my education. To people who want to embark on a humanitarian career, to be a humanitarian is to walk the path of balance for all of humanity. That is no small feat because we test each other in 1,000 different ways to be intolerant and hateful to each other. In order to be a humanitarian, though, at the core of it, you have to love people and you have to love yourself and you have to hold on to a vision of a brighter future. Because if you're in a humanitarian field and you are incapable of having a self care regimen, of remembering why you love your life, and being able to laugh, you will burn out on that career very quickly. I watched a lot of people burn out during the pandemic. So if you're going to actually work on behalf of humanity, that's where your passion needs to be. Not the future for you, the future for the seventh generation coming after you. If we had the longevity that our ancestors had in antiquity, where they could build these huge cathedrals and all of these wonderful buildings, it took them 6, 7 generations to build these things. Our disposable commodities have made it to where we are short sighted, my friends. Make your action as a humanitarian for the people you will never meet, but who will be the beneficiaries of your generosity and your kindness. That should be the core of your humanitarian ethos. And to all of the creatives that are out there, lastly, I would say art for art's sake matters. Improv matters. Your swirly art that someone said looks like a toddler did it. It matters. Your creativity matters. Don't give up on your art. Don't give up on your writing just because you're not a best-selling author and you can't get more than 10 likes on Instagram. Your success as an artist is because you're doing it. That's where the success is. The recognition and the rest of it has been superimposed on us by external society. These hallmarks that you're not a writer unless you've sold 100,000 copies of a work. You're not an artist unless you can make $2,000 for a painting. These are arbitrary lines that do not exist in reality. If you made a painting, you're an artist. If you wrote something, you're a writer. If you dance around in your living room when nobody's looking and you're really good at it, but too shy to get up on stage, guess what? You're a dancer. I have met so many people who will sing in the shower and they're like soprano level and they can't do that in front of other people, but they won't call themselves singers. I've known people who can bake a pie that can make you cry because it's that good, but they will not call themselves an artist. They are. Art for art's sake is about creating so that it can be enjoyed through the creation of it or just bringing people together. So stop thinking about your creativity as a commodity and think of it more as a mental health tool to sustain who you are. That's pretty much what I would want to say.
Thank you. A billion thanks to you, Magdalene, and for taking a mindful moment with me today. This was largely impactful. It resonated deeply. This has been incredible conversation. Gosh, I hope the rest of your day is beautiful and light. And
Yours
ha-
too.
do you have any more that you feel like you want to add in closing, or are you good?
I just wanted to, on behalf of the 34 Gallery in Samuka, Africa, I just wanted to thank you for giving me and us the opportunity to discuss the 34 Gallery and what we're doing. And again, I just want to thank you for being a phenomenal inspiration to all of us with your own advocacy and the things that you do. We have really done a lot now to try to recruit more audiovisual artists due to your involvement, that we want to make sure that that is actually a staple of the 34 Gallery, that these artists are recognized because of your work with us. So, and everything from your judging on with the art to just your presence online, You've been very integral to our process, and you're mentioned very frequently in our meetings where we're trying to make sure that digital artists of all varieties are included in these conversations, that the AI art community is not left out because we do have disabled artists who are not able to have the physical strength to create art. I think when people are talking about the AI art conversation, they're not realizing that someone who's wheelchair bound with a degenerative disorder might only be able to move a mouse, the cursor, to create a digital artwork instead of, oh, they spent, 60 hours working on this painting. And to have, we have several artists who are in this situation in multiple countries where AI art kept them from utter despair at ending their lives because they felt like they were useless. And all of a sudden, the AI art and NFT communities have made them feel like they're valuable, they can matter, that they can be a part of a larger creative community that thinks they're brilliant. And 6 months ago, everyone was just they were just someone's sob story, and now they are international award-winning AI artists with careers. So I just wanted to put that out there because I know that these conversations take place because you and a lot of our AI artists are on board, and I know that wasn't an aspect that we covered, um, this schism between the fine art and AI art communities and how they've been at each other this way. I really challenge people to look at AI art differently in that manner as to how it can open up doors for the people who are just simply not physically able to even have the tools available to them to do fine art or sculpture. So you're a part of that conversation and you've put it on our radar, and we've been inclusive of those things from our inception for that reason. So I thank you for being you. And I do love this artwork in the background. I love your talent and your energy. And I'm just honored to have been able to be here and speak today.
Thank you so much. I didn't know, and I'm so happy that, gosh, I'm so happy. That just brings so much joy to me. If there's anything that I can do, please reach out to me, even if it's to teach somebody how to perhaps utilize the tools that are available that are free. They don't know how to get to those tools. Perhaps there's a way, because there are so many people that are in the community that are giving to one another freely these tools. For instance, Comfy UI, there's a whole community behind Comfy UI, and there's somebody that I know that provides teachings for a couple of hours. He's doing this for free, how to use Comfy and how to generate images. If there's anything I can do, please, just let me know, and I'm here to help. I hope your day is amazing. It's Friday, January 17th, and oh gosh, love and light to you and yours and the entire 34 Gallery SDG 3.4 mental health community, the Simukai.org, the UN, all of y'all.
Okay.
Make sure you eat a cookie. And with
All
that,
right.
thank you. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
All right. Thank you as well. Be well.
Absolutely. You too.